Scarlett Blade. Hallo, meine Damen und Herren, and welcome to Silent Night, Memoirs of a Royal Guard, Chapter 54. Onyx frowned at his handbook. May die of boredom, he said. In fact, that is all he said for 2 days. I'm aware, I replied. They'll bury us together. I replied as I looked down at my copy of the officer's handbook. When I was a sergeant, I couldn't understand why so many officers clung to the book. Now I knew. Ponies weren't just expected to be familiar with it, they were expected to memorize it word for word. We were committing it all to memory, so that we could regurgitate it on tests. Sure, it had been like this in the Royal Guard Academy, but this was going to the extreme. I would say most of the information wasn't useful for what happens daily on the job. That didn't change the requirements, though. Let's just get through this and we'll move to more interesting things, I said. Onyx grunted and we continued on. It was a painful experience and it seemed like the younger cadets had an easier time with it. They didn't have anything to compare what they were reading to and just took it on faith. Lucky ponies. The class had started to be narrowed down. Each week meant more ponies quitting and being washed out. That was the nature of the beast. With our help, and the 3 younger ponies had managed to hang in. They'd make decent enough officers. It was also interesting to see who was rising to the top on their own record. Onyx and I had a huge advantage, so it was no surprise we were near the top. I was more interested in the ponies that were excelling without previous guard experience. I set my manual down on the table in front of me and looked around. Most of the top students were the foals of other Royal Guard officers. They were either predisposed to the job or their parents made sure they were ready for it. All told, they were pretty standard, save one. At the head of the class was a dark gray stallion. He was an outsider in every sense of the word. The Crystal Empire had recently reappeared, and the Crystal ponies were slowly reintegrating into society. They weren't the only denizens of the frozen north, however. There were also frost ponies, and he was one of them. The pony went by the name Cobalt Thane, and was pretty tight-lipped about himself and his type of pony. He had a horn like a unicorn, but was also as big as an earth pony, which he said was common for frost ponies. What really set him apart was the fact that he had a mane not unlike a lion's up in his chest and around his shoulders. It was whitish blue like his tail and looked furry. His pony name, for lack of a better description, was similarly dense and styled in a way that barely met regulations. It was spiked and somewhat all over the place in the front. What rounded him out as different was his pointed ears and violet eyes. Most of the other cadets had steered clear of him because of a rumor that he used dark magic, but I hadn't seen anything like that. By my guess, Cobalt was probably the first frost pony to apply to any Royal Guard position in contemporary history. For all I knew, he'd be the first frost pony Royal Guard officer. What I did know for sure was that he worked hard all the time. When the other younger ponies were goofing off, he was training or studying. It gave me a lot of respect for him. Book, Onyx said. What? Onyx pushed my manual up against me. Quit staring. Oh, yeah, right, book. I settled in for another long session of facts and figures, only to be interrupted by the door opening. The senior instructor marched in and faced the class. Listen up, cadets! A senior instructor called from the head of the room. While I am certain you all love reading those manuals, it is time for some applied training. Hoof-to-hoof combat. Every pony get your flanks down to the gym. In my head, I cheered loudly and got up to do just that. The Royal Canterlot Officers Academy boasted the finest gym I'd ever seen. It had every form of exercise equipment known to ponies. It also sported 2 full-size sparring squares, and we were all standing around one of them. I need 2 volunteers, the senior instructor called. I looked at Onyx, and he said, You first. All right, I replied and stepped forward. Cadet Knight, brave pony, the instructor said, and then pointed to as another cadet stepped forward. It was the leader of the trio we had been tutoring. Cody or something. I had not learned many names yet. There wasn't much point to it. We squared off, and Cody said, "I'll go easy. I know you older ponies don't move as fast as you used to." There were a lot of whoas in the crowd. I did my best not to crack a smile. "Don't worry about us old ponies, Cody. Just give it your all," I replied. "Hobby. My name is Hobby." The instructor gave me the briefest of looks, and I dropped into my combat stance. "No magic, no flying, hooves only, go!" he shouted, and I let the lesson begin. I sat quietly at one of the tables in the muster area writing a letter to Shining Armor. It was difficult to sum up 2/3 of my time at the academy, but I was doing my best. A letter was long overdue. It was a strange being at the academy, but at the same time it wasn't that different than what I did every day. I missed my ponies, though. I had been with the same unit for my whole career while I sat in class. Radiant Orchid was busy vetting the final ponies I picked to fill the house guard. They likely wouldn't have any idea who I was when I reported back. "To Colonel Shining Armor, Crystal Empire Garrison, commanding. Sir, I'm about 8 weeks into my time here at the academy, and it goes well. The senior instructor is as tough as they come, and I've learned a whole lot from him and his staff. It has been interesting to see the younger ponies grow. They weren't soldiers, but they're shaping up well, at least those that are still here. That is the nature of the beast, though. How are things in the Crystal Empire? How's Lady Cadence? I have some concerns that it may be dangerous there, but I know you'll more than rise to the challenge. As much as I loathe to do so, I need to ask you 2 favors, sir. One is minor and may interest you. The other is, well, it is a lot, I understand if you refuse. The first relates to your location. There is a student here by the name of Cobalt Thane. He is a frost pony. I imagine there are more there near where you live and anywhere else. If you could forward any information you have on them, I would appreciate it. I have an academic curiosity. The second favor is not academic at all. Sir, I know we have ponies over there. I know they're working on the situation. You have a lot of clout. Please consider placing me on the inside. Even if I could just read the reports, I wouldn't feel like I'm sitting here helpless. I'm doing better, far better, but I can't let this go. That may result in me being a sorry excuse for an officer, but this one time, I need to see this to an end. I paused and looked over the words on the page. It was a lot to ask. There was no reason for him to agree, and I shouldn't have asked still. I had to. I needed to. Quickly, I moved on to something less serious. You may find it interesting that older ponies with experience still have an extreme advantage over young ones when it comes to hoof-to-hoof combat. Onyx Mace, a classmate of mine, and I taught a whole graduation class that age is rarely the determining factor in a battle. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy teasing them around for a bit. They started out so smug. One of them even called me old. Idly, I sketched a picture of a helmet by itself into the letter. It was subtle, but I knew the colonel would get the message. I believe you know Crystal wishes. I can't recall at this minute if you're interacted more than an introduction. So Princess Luna's friend. For the longest time I thought she was with her roommate, but evidently I was wrong. It has been a while since I dated. You know how the last one went, but this feels different. She looks at me different, and when she does it is indescribable. I know you know what that is like. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think she might be the right pony for me. A better fit for sure. Obviously, I may be seeing something that might not be real. I don't know much about this sort of thing, but if you and your wife have any advice, I'll gladly take it. I'm both excited and frightened. I don't want it to go the same way again. What if she can't live with a soldier? I'll be looking forward to your response. Cadet Silent Knight, Royal Counterlord Officers Academy, student. Carefully, I folded the letter and slipped it into an envelope. The contents were highly confidential, so I made a note slip into a large envelope before mailing. Shining Armor always provided good advice for me, probably better than any pony else. He'd know what was best.
"Come eat at the table, Silent Night," Winterspear said softly. "You've already memorized that book."
She was more or less right. I tossed it on the couch and came over to sit between Dot and Iridescence. They weren't speaking to each other at the moment, and it somehow felt extra cold to be near them. Winterspear set a plate in front of me. It is okay if you eat fast. I know you don't have long." I nodded and started eating. Looking around, I found that I was the only pony doing so. Slowly, I set my fork down. "Are we all in a fight?" I asked cautiously. Dot shook her head. "No, just Iridescence and I." Iridescence folded her hooves. "We're not in a fight. You have to learn that while you are here. I'm boss." The filly stuck her tongue out and huffed. I'd always been curious why she looked so much different than her sister and father. What she lacked in physical attributes, however, she more than matched in mannerisms. It was chilling. I was sitting between Iridescence and a mini Iridescence. Winterspear pointed at my plate. "Eat. You're fine." I ate since my evening liberties were generally short. Plus, I didn't want any part of this. I felt a lot like home and not in the good way.
"How was school today?"
Winterspear asked Dot. The filly's expression changed and she bubbled a bit, seemingly forgotten she was angry.
"It's getting better. I have some friends now. They're not the popular girls, but the popular girls are really mean." She then frowned. "And I was supposed to meet them for dinner tonight, but some pony said I had a curfew."
"Fillies your age shouldn't be out roaming the streets at night," Iridescence explained.
"Well, my friends' parents don't agree,"
Dot shouted across me. Slowly I slid back from the table, though I didn't move too quickly. Mares sense motion. Iridescence turned and glared at the filly. "I don't care. Your friends are a year older. Next year we'll discuss it. For now, you come home when I say you do. Now eat your dinner. Winterspear worked hard making it." Dot glared back. Lightly I set my hoof on Dot's head and turned her to face her plate. "I can't handle that look from you. Eat so you can grow up to be bigger than your sister." The little unicorn giggled at that and swatted at my hoof. "Fine, but only for Winterspear. She let me go out." When I looked across the table, my sister was gone. In her wake, there was nothing but a swirl of feathers. Smart cookie. I took a note from her. "Well, I'm going to go back to study more. You two, well, just don't murder each other there. If you're going to do it somewhere convenient." But then I hope you guys have had a wunderbar day.